let's finally make some of these blocks. Hi, I'm Angie with Cutting Edge Quilter, and I was looking over some of my patterns that I've had in the past, and I realized that I went to, and I'll link the video up top, but I went to it's like a quilt shop hop last year or the year before, I can't remember, and I got a bunch of patterns or blocks that I bought from each store, and they come in little plastic wraps like this. And they have the fabric, and they're with them all cut up, ready to go. So for this series that I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and just make the blocks, and then you can watch me put them together. So I don't have the actual, like a backing fabric and things like that to match it. So I'll see what I have, maybe have to purchase a few, some fabric, but that's okay. So the first block that I want to make today, or this week, is it's called a mosaic block, and it has, I don't know if you could see, I'm going to try to hold it up a little bit closer, a cute little block there that, that they, like I said, they cut the fabric out, and it should be ready to go. So we'll go ahead and get that one started and make that this week. Next week, I don't know, I have several different types of blocks. So we'll see where we go and see what we get and see what we come up with at the very end. Okay, so based on the pattern, which I really can't give you because it's not my pattern, but I've managed to make the center. So this is the center of the block right here. And now we are going to be working with the outside edges. So this is part of the center as well. So we're going to be working with these now, and sew them onto the center block right here. This pattern is a little bit different than what I'm used to with these, so yeah, it just a little bit different than I am used to making a block. So we're just going to follow the pattern, and hopefully we'll get this block correct. So basically it's telling me I need to sew along this. I cut those squares in half and make like a little triangle type thing. And then it's telling me I need to sew along this part on all four sides with these triangles. I have 4 triangles now. So like I said, it's a little different than what I normally do, but I'm going to go right exactly the way the pattern says, and we'll see how it goes. I think the most important thing you can do with this pattern that I'm using is just to make sure that you press every time you sew. So I'm going to sew this onto this square, and after I get this one sewn on, I'm going to make sure that I press it open, and I'll do that before I put on any more triangles to my square. So this is what it looks like sewn onto the middle block, and I actually pressed it open. I prefer to press open unless it's something that I'm going to stitch in the ditch to quilt it, which I don't normally do. So it's going to be pretty stable on there. So I'm going to go ahead and do all 4 of these and see how it goes. The problem with this method is, you see how these kind of connect with each other, and it doesn't give a very good idea of the pattern, doesn't give a very good idea of what needs to be done here, but we'll work with it. Okay, so this is what it looks like sewn together. And as you can see, there's a few little dog ears on there that I need to cut off and straighten up the square. But this is what the middle part of that block looks like. So now that I have my inside block done, now it's time. I had 2 of these squares, and like I said, this is a little bit different than the way I usually cut these and sew them together. But I'm going to try like the directions say, exactly like they say, and see if it works. But we'll try it. So I cut these in half and then just made them like little triangles, like that. And I'll just sew them to this and let you know how that turns out. So I went ahead and sewed these triangles onto the block, and just wanted to, before I squared this up, I wanted to show you the back of it. So there's the back of the block. It's halfway done. There's still a little bit more left to go. Before I am done though, what I did was I'm squaring up the edges. I think it's pretty important with this kind of thing to square up the edges as you go. So I sewed all 4 of these on, and now I'm squaring up. And the reason why I need to square it up is because if you see this part right up here, it has like a little dog ear. That part is a little bit not exactly straight as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just put it on my line here and just square it up to make sure everything is nice and even on all four sides. Okay, with this block I have 2 more types of fabric that I need to use, and that's my rectangles here, and I have 2 squares here in the brown. So what I'm going to do with those is, my directions say that I need to put a border type thing, sort of like a border, on these squares. So what I'll do is I will sew 4 of these onto this. So that's what I'm going to do first, and then I'll work with these squares. Okay, confession time. So you know how I've shown you all these papers of all of the blocks that I got from the Shop Hops last year, and I was going to start with the first one, so I have them all together, and started with the first one. And you know how this whole time I've been saying this is kind of a weird way to cut things. I'm not used to it, but I'm going to just go for it, things like that. Well, come to find out, it was a completely wrong pattern. It was a totally different block that I was, and I cannot find the pattern for the block that I am working on. So, you know, I've already gotten it most of the way done. So I just went for it and just started sewing things together, right or wrong, whatever. So this is where the block is now. So what I did, I just sewed the long pieces here, and then I sewed these triangles. I cut the squares into triangles and just sewed them here. And what I'm going to do now is square up this part of it. It's going to be squared up to where you won't see where these are going to be cut off. These 2 things right up here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I think that's where, hopefully I have the size of the block right. Like I said, it was pre-cut fabric, so all I had to do was cut down the middle for the triangles. So hopefully I got the size right. But I cannot find that pattern anywhere. So that's why I was so confused this whole time of the cutting and the sewing together part, because it wasn't the correct pattern. So, but at least we'll get this one block done. I believe there are 9 blocks total in the whole quilt. But for this week, we're just going to get this one block done, and then next week I'll start on the next block. Hopefully I'll have them arranged in order to where I'll be able to tell you, I'll be able to cut along with the pattern. So stay tuned for that next week. But for this week, we're going to go ahead and finish this one up. Okay, so my plan is to go ahead and just use these two straight lines here and these straight lines here on my cutting mat, and that's what I'm going to use to straighten things out. And the picture that I have of the quilt shows that these tips on these are cut off, so that's okay if I cut those off. From this, it doesn't look like they're cut off much. I'm gonna... There's a few seams in here, so I want to make sure that I get everything all nice and even and cut. Oh, that doesn't look too bad. So there's my first cut. Not too bad. Okay, I'm going to go in for my second cut. Hopefully this will work on my overall quilt, but you know, I figured with quilting like this, and there's no one set pattern for the actual quilt, just the quilt blocks, I figured I'd just kind of do my own thing and see where I land. So hopefully at the end of this we'll either have a nice big quilt or we'll have a nice wall hanging. Either way, I'm good with. And this is the finished quilt block after I've gotten it all cut. And yeah, it actually didn't cut off the tips of this, but that's okay. I think it looks really good, given that I had zero pattern to work with, or I used the wrong pattern in the beginning. So I had a picture, so since I had that picture, that's kind of what I used. And this is it. This is the finished quilt block for the week. I'm not even for sure what it's called, since I don't have the pattern that I can find anyway. But it's turned out really good, really pretty. I like the inside of the block. So if you like this week's block of the week, then stay tuned for next week, where I'll be doing the second part of the 9-block series that I received on the my quilt shop hop from last year. So you'll see that, and then we will put them together into a quilt. Like I was saying earlier, it's either going to be a quilt or a wall hanging. It's whatever the quilt or it's whatever the quilt blocks decide to be at the end. That's what we'll do. So thanks so much for watching, and if you like this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and like this video. And like I said, stay tuned for next week, where we'll be doing another part 2 of the quilt blocks that I received when I went to the quilt shop hop. Thanks for watching, and happy quilting!